Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching the conversation on Lagos television. Right now on the program, we'll be looking at the Israel-Iran war. Of course, taking a deeper look at the implication of these hostilities between Iran and Israel, the implication for the world and the involvement of America, as well as the implication of this war on the economy of Nigeria. We all know that the economy of Nigeria depends solely on oil, and Iran, when it comes to the production of oil, is not a pushover. So what are the likely implications for the world peace if this war should continue? And largely, what are the likely consequences of this war on the economy of Nigeria? We have joining us to discuss this issue, George Ashiru, CEO, Honeycorp Consulting and Financial Management Consultant. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure always been here.
Okay, so give us your own understanding of these hostilities between Iran and Israel and the involvement of America. And many have also said that the current ceasefire is cosmetic and fragile, and that the two countries are not really sincere. Taking it from the beginning till the end, what is your own understanding of exactly what is happening?
Well, historically, Israel has always seen Iran as their biggest adversary because the Iranian culture, the regime, apparently, overtly, makes it clear that either because of the issue of the Palestinians or broader issues of the region and the struggle for power and dominance, they have made it clear that, Israel is not welcome in the land that they occupy. And so clearly, Israel sees Iran, therefore, in that regard. So there have been many raids, many bombs that have been sent to Iran over the years, every time Israel feels threatened by their military activities. And anytime that happens, Iran produces 4% of the world's oil. And so, and oil is so volatile as a market that every variation will make everybody start to panic. Iran also controls the movement of trade and oil tankers and everything around this Hormuz Strait, which is a narrow area where ships can pass through from the Atlantic Ocean, from the Mediterranean Ocean to the Indian Ocean. And so, instead of people having to go around South Africa to be able to move goods to North Africa or to Europe, they can move straight from that Suez Canal area, part of which is controlled by Iran. And so all of these things have a way of impacting everybody. So this current situation, unfortunately, both countries, both Israel and Iran, are even more disproportionately affected by the fact that they are spending money on weapons, on bombs, on security. In case of Israel, mobilization, over 450,000 of their young people have been mobilized, so unemployment is looming. They already fought in Gaza. They've lost about $60 billion so far in terms of armaments used in fighting Hezbollah, fighting everywhere. All of this causes uneasiness. So imagine tourism is affected. All right? Flights to Israel cancelled. Even now, even with the ceasefire, people are watching with one eye open. Pilots and everybody's wondering if one day another bomb will blast. So when there's uncertainty, it rattles investors. Investors don't move money into an area that is uncertain. Yet, the whole of the economy of the Middle East is one of the biggest in the world. It's an area where the people are investing in Dubai, investing in United Arab Emirates. One of the biggest companies in the world, Aramco, is Saudi Arabian. So there's always that fear that Iran might decide to shoot down refineries in that area or oil depots and do that randomly and use all of their various partners, in this overall war to create this uncertainty. And I think that is the greater impact for the rest of the world. And if you want to then bring it down to Nigeria.
Before we even come to Nigeria, these ceasefire, which was brokered by the American president, should we really trust it, or do you think it's fragile and cosmetic? Like
all ceasefires are fragile. All. There has never been one that. Look at what's going on between the Ukrainians and there was ceasefire since 2014. The people forget that this whatever war they're fighting now started years ago when Crimea was invaded. And then it was like, oh, ceasefire. Then they came back, and then they came back. So what happens with when countries have a ideological war is that ideological wars are never totally settled. The war between North and South Korea is still not settled because it's just a matter of balance of power. Now you feel if I go to war, I may lose, and then I will lose people, and then I will lose my economy. I may even lose my power. So you will say, okay, I reserve the right to go to war, but I won't go to war. So all ceasefires are just that. It's not an end of war, which is a declaration. And Israel has never wanted to be held to a ceasefire. Israel always wants to reserve the right to strike. And as long as you reserve the right to strike, then the regime will also reserve the right to use all its various satellites, to attack all your interests, in addition to attacking you directly. And so the world can never utterly make a presumptuous investment on the basis of this ceasefire. More so when the president of America is a very erratic person in terms of the way he leads. And being erratic is actually his brand. He doesn't want to be predictable. And not being predictable means that even when he says ceasefire, he himself can choose to strike. And so that's one of the things that is going on right now in the Middle East. It's unfortunate that the Middle East has been the theater of world instability for decades. Let us not even say centuries, for decades. And there is no true end in sight. And it's not just about regime change in one country. They tried it in Iraq, they tried it in Syria, they've tried it in Libya. Has it brought any peace? It has created different types of new warriors who are out there continuing whatever fights their predecessors were fighting, but in a much more deadly way, terrorism.
Okay, let's talk about the American president now. People have alleged that he's speaking from the two sides of his mouth. The strike by America on the nuclear sites of Iran, many people never saw it coming. And here we have Trump again talking about ceasefire. So where exactly does America belong in all of this?
I think it's very funny. People in leadership and politics can read Trump very well. He's a very easy man to read. Very, very easy. I'm surprised people saying that when someone is almost 80 years old, has behaved exactly the same way for decades, then I'm surprised he's not an unknown factor. Anybody who sees him has done a SWOT analysis. The unfortunate part of it is that Israel knows precisely, just like so many others, including Putin, by the way, they know precisely how to stoke the ego of Donald Trump in order to make him make a decision as not to be seen to be weak. So in a case where Israel proactively decided to strike Iran and Iran fought back, then the question is this: who is the protector of Israel? It is United States. Sure. So it will be seen as a sign of weakness that you can see bombs coming into Iraq. You can see all your technology is not stopping the bombs. Over 5,000 people are displaced. 10,000 people are already asking for, 33,000 people asking for reconstruction funds. For the first time, bombs are actually entering, despite all the Iron Dome and Davis Sling and whatever. So the belief is that America needed to bomb Iraq to show, Iran, to show Iran that we can come into this war and you will lose. So this is just a way of showing you we can enter your country, we can destroy you, including your palaces, and you will lose. So if I were you, stop this. And that's exactly what they went to do. I don't think they intended to join the war. And I don't even think, in all seriousness, they expected that they will be able to bomb all of the facilities. I will tell you why. When you are building your defenses as in a military, you presume all the weapons of warfare of your opponent. Of course, you have to know what they have. And America does not hide what they have. They like to tell the whole world, we have a bunker buster, we have this, we have that. And then they will go back and say, okay, that thing can penetrate 100 meters. Maybe we need to go 100 meters long. Or maybe we need to claim this is where our nuclear reactors are, whereas they are maybe a mile away or 2 miles away. So they prepare for its possibility that a time will come in the future that Israel will want to bomb their nuclear reactors, and they've hidden them. And they are invested in giving a false narrative that they are destroyed so that America will not come back or Israel will not come back. So they might say, oh, it's destroyed for the sake of, okay, you can keep away. So it's not something that will ever go away. War by itself has never solved war.
Okay. All right. Looking at the intensity of this aggression and the support that the two countries are enjoying from some superpowers now, is it enough to trigger another world war?
No. You know, everybody talks about the world war. You know, in my lifetime, in your lifetime, there's not going to be a war. Because the weapons that are available today are not like the weapons of 70 years ago, 90 years ago. The weapons that are available today can destroy the entire earth in 7 days. You can destroy the entire earth in 7 days. By the time just 100 nuclear bombs are sent to all the biggest cities in the world, that's the end of the world that you know. Those who are not killed by bombs, radiation will kill them afterwards. And radiation will go all over around the entire globe. So there is never going to be a mad president that would decide that I'm going to trigger a third world war, knowing fully well that that kind of war is a war of attrition, which means I'm invested in destroying my enemy utterly, but the enemy also wants to destroy you. I mean, put it in perspective. The nuclear arsenal of Russia can destroy the world 100 times over. The nuclear arsenal that they have, over 20,000 nuclear bombs, is enough to destroy the entire world all over. Only 2 were sent in the last day of the Second World War. The Second World War ended. So I think there are no mad people, because there are loads of people that are required to set up a nuclear bomb, and not all of them will be mad at the same time. So even if the president is mad, you know, the assembly will say, so it won't be terrible, but there will be skirmishes of great proportions, you know, between nations, and those skirmishes will never end. It's just a matter of them moving from one cell to the other, to the other, to the other, just like we have seen. You know, one is not ended in Russia, another one is going on here, and before you know it, you could be talking China, and you know, it is coming over, you know, and Africa never stopped going to war. The whole of the, you know, Eastern Africa has constantly been at war. So we are going to have that unfortunate cycle of people struggling for space, for land, for resources, for power. It's a human issue. Human issues can never be resolved.
Okay, Iran also said that there is going to be consequences for the actions of America and Israel as well. Looking at the role of Iran when it comes to the production of oil, do you think that threat is just empty, or they are likely to do something that will affect?
It's already been done. They've said this against American assets
in Qatar.
In Qatar and Iraq, and they have, and it's cosmetic. You know, when you telegraph your movement, you are simply saying, "I can reach you, but I don't want to escalate this war." So I think there wasn't an intention. If this war was all out, the Houthis would have started striking. Yemen would have started striking. Some of those unstable nations, including in the north of Africa, like Libya and all those places, where they will have all started to mass together and to fight all the assets of these big powers. And that's really pseudo world war, if you know what I mean. Because now you have advantage of the weakness. Because when you are focused on fighting the war, you don't know who's coming behind you. Israel cannot afford an all-out war with Iran, because it again gives opportunity for Hamas to get up again and be fighting you for one front. Houthis are fighting for another front. Hezbollah is fighting non-stop. Now, don't forget, it's not about winning militarily. How about the economic impact of this? Because when you're at war, you can't produce. When you're at war, you can't export.
You're not even settled.
Everywhere you're sending your ships can be bombed. So if you're exporting materials, they can be bombed. All it takes is just one crazy terrorist follow one ship, and that's it. So if you're buying oil, the oil can be bombed along the route. Okay, where are you even buying the oil from? It's probably from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia will be threatened that if you ship oil to Israel, we're going to bomb your refineries. So that is why there's no real systems, and a country that has been preparing for a war for decades. That is, they've looked at all the scenario. Worst case scenario, America comes in. Worst case scenario, NATO comes in. Okay, what happens? They thought that just by going to Iraq 1 year, 2 years, everything will be over. After going to Iraq and coming, what happened? this. But the Republicans lose the presidency to Obama. They would never have voted a black man because they tried. They went to Afghanistan for 10 years. They came back and returned the people they removed. The same Taliban you went to fight, after spending $2 trillion, they came back and took power again. Really, there's no straightforward way to war. You can only win a battle, but you never truly win a war.
All right, let's come back home now and look at the consequences of this war between Iran and Israel. You know that the economy of Nigeria depends largely on oil. And looking at the budget for the year 2025, it was based on 75. And that region of the world is quite hostile now. And there's every possibility that the budget for the year 2025 will be affected. How do you see all of this panning out at the end of the day for the Nigerian economy? And what are the shocks and absorbers that we need to start preparing for so that the 2025 budget will not suffer?
But we don't have any shock absorber or shocking systems or non-anti-shock or anti-slip. We essentially, 90% of government revenue
It's from oil.
External revenue is oil. The advantage during that one window when the oil prices went to 80 something, $80 plus. In that period, they earn a bit more, and they are not paying subsidy, so all of that is now federal income. They are not recycling part of that money to pay subsidy, and the exchange rate regime favors the federal government as well because it's liberal. So basically, everything you earned is yours. You're not recycling it back to the system. But what has then happened is that right after Iran struck, a few days later, the price of oil came down to 60 something. So thank God for the little $5 or $8 or $10 we made in the first 7 days. If the price of crude oil comes down below an acceptable limit, the Nigerian government is going to put pressure on you and I through the IGR. They're going to tax you more. They're going to make you pay for more services. The 100% inflation we're already suffering from the various removals of support from government programs is going to multiply, because if the government is moving away from oil as its mainstay, the only way you can get that money is through you and I. So the impact of every decision the government is going to make as a response to the international situation is that you and I will pay more one way or the other. Tax laws will be changed, to increase IGR for government. More services, passport prices have gone up, driving license prices have gone up. Practically everything. They will simply just keep adding to it, because they can't be borrowing for life.
Okay, so with this development now, is it not enough for us to be more aggressive as to how we diversify the economy of Nigeria? Because each time there is anything in the Middle East and the prices of crude oil is affected, we're always jittery in this part of the world.
Well, I think one of the things you find in the philosophy of governance, is that we are always focused on painting the wall when there's a crack, rather than putting the wall down and rebuilding it. So when you repaint it and people pass, they'll say, there's development. Can't you see how beautiful it looks? But it was made with straw. So the basic infrastructure that will help the government diversify, we don't have it. We have steel that has not been built in 50 years. Our electricity is not sorted out. We don't have a native plastic industry that can support the production of microchips. We don't have some of the things that even countries like Brazil has. Then, don't forget it, we have a education system that does not support the kind of industrialization that can help us. 90% of our academic system is purely based on cramming and writing exams and passing exams. We don't have in schools labs that teach children can go in there and learn skills and go away and build industries, even cottage industries. So what we do have is that we are a trading economy. We are a traders-based economy. We simply buy ready-made, finished products from China and resell it to each other, and that's the basis of our economy. When we get to the point where there is enough infrastructure for us to be able to create fresh, and innovate fresh and build fresh, then you and I can say government can afford to relax, believing that even if I'm not making much from crude oil, I can make enough from taxes because of entrepreneurs that are doing very well in business and big factories that are exporting and bringing forex into the country. So even if we reduce our dependency on oil, we have made it up because we have built industrial base that can support our economy. That is not happening. Even if you look at the focus of government now, like the last time I mentioned here, it is not on industrialization. It's still on services. It's still on buy and sell. It's on banking. It's on all of the things that are not going to have sustainable long-term benefits from us. For a country of 250 million people, I think we need a greater interest and in industrialization. Then the only attempt we go into industrialization is by trying to get foreign direct investment. And I keep saying it, people who are coming from abroad are going to repatriate all of their money.
At the end of the day?
Yes. They will come here, they will establish a factory, they employ 1,000 people, but they will make 50 billion and they'll repatriate all of it in forex. They are not reinvesting it back
into the economy.
So at the end of the day, the government in itself has to encourage us as people, industrialists within Nigeria, to have long-term sustainable business ideas rather than focusing on maybe 100 companies coming from abroad, bringing $2 billion, whereas our economy should be $700 billion, $1 trillion by now. So we are still celebrating really small wins, whereas we should be focusing on far, 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 far bigger. Look at South Africa. It's self-sufficient. Even nobody's investing in South Africa. South Africa has talents and investment and capacity. Look at Israel, self-sufficient. They have technology. The technology is home-based. They produce is home-based. But we are waiting for foreigners to come here and they will take it all out. MTN is taking all the money out. Standard Chartered, they're taking it all out. All of these people who are here, they're the ones that are making our dollars expensive, because as soon as they sell any small thing, they go to CBN, they mop it up, and then the dollar remains high. So until we produce locally and export, it is exports that's going to give us parity in terms of forex. But we're not exporting enough, and even if we're exporting, the government is not showing any prioritization in terms of focus. Should we become an agricultural industry that exports? Even the ones we're exporting, there's a tendency for it to be a one-man business. You understand? It's just me. And instead of moving the money back, I keep the money in a foreign account.
But this government is saying that it wants to make the Nigerian economy a $1 trillion economy. Are there indices that
it's not going to happen? It's not going to happen in the next 6 years if this government has 8 years in power. It's not going to happen. You are not going to move an economy that you inherited, that the GDP was $300 billion, the biggest economy in Africa. After 1 year, it came to be the 5th biggest in Africa. You inherited it as number 1. After 1 year, it's number 5. That is, instead of it growing, it's reducing. Now your GDP is $288 billion. You inherited it at 300. The government before inherited it from 500. So tell me, how is it going to become a $1 trillion economy when in 2014 our GDP was 500 and something billion dollars? Now it's half. Are we going up or going down? So when is it going to be $1 trillion? It's not going to happen just because you declare it. It's going to happen because you plan for it. And that plan is something that everybody can see and feel.
How critical is power to this plan?
Without power, there's no industry. Without power, there's no industry. Okay, so even if we cannot generate enough hydroelectric power or gas-powered plants, what stops us from massively investing in solar energy? What stops us from massively just looking for factories all over Nigeria, building solar cells, building inverters, all locally produced here? It's not difficult technology. By the time 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 batches of engineers spend time in China, they will know, they will understand how it works, and then all the technology behind it is not extremely advanced. What stops us from saying, okay, we are going to make sure that at least industries can power themselves using solar energy, or windmill like they do in Europe? But you know, government only shows interest in the area that they have control. Because they have control of the power generated, that's the only thing they're interested in. So they can put money and bring money out. Every other industry that can potentially make Nigerians richer, there isn't that emphasis, there isn't that focus. It's like it's your business, it's your money. All we need is your taxes. So why should we focus our energy in helping you? There is not enough of that. If you know that with that power you can't have industrialization, then we should have started since 1922. But what we hear is the same thing we are focusing on refineries. Why didn't we think of licensing people to have refineries 50 years ago? Because government wants monopoly of producing oil. And you can see the battle now between Dangote and government. Because the evidence of it is, now suddenly the monopoly has shifted from us to a private industry. But that's exactly how you run a business. That's how you run an economy. America was built by the Henry Fords, private business, by the Howard Hughes, private business, by the Boeings, by all of these individual industries that on their own are even richer than governments. You and I know that Apple is about 10 times richer than Nigeria. Apple as a company, built by one man, it's generating over 2 trillion in terms of value, which is almost 10 times more than the whole of what we are, 250 million people are. So, private industry is key to the survival of our economy. We need more banks, we need more manufacturing companies, we need more entities that can generate more employment, and government starts to shrink and shrink and shrink. And when government shrinks, corruption shrinks.
All right, before we end our conversation this morning, now that we are not very sure as to when the hostilities between Israel and Iran is going to end, how well should we tighten our belt as Nigerians? Because I think just last week we saw the increase in the price of PMS, and if this should continue, there is every possibility that the market will also react. So how well should we tighten our belt as Nigerian citizens, and of course on the part of government?
So Libya produces crude, but their prices are consistent. Almost all the other countries that produce crude, their prices are consistent. Do you know why? Because they're not producing and then exporting to go and have it refined and brought back, and therefore dependent on international oil prices. What stops us moving crude into our refineries internally? What has that got to do with forex prices? We produce the crude locally, we move it to our local refineries, we produce the PM, the refined premiums locally, and the prices are stable. But we still have people importing crude dependent on the exchange rate. So naturally it's going to affect the price. But we have refineries here that can produce enough for the markets. But we are not giving the crude to those refineries because we want to earn forex from the crude. Then you now use it to go and buy refined product and bring it back. Stupid way of thinking in an economic sense. And I'm surprised that the government finds it easy to live with it. By now, there should have been, this is what I mean by, you don't encourage private businesses to help you build your economy. If a private business has spent $20 billion building a refinery, it's as a matter of priority. You should have all the crude it needs. It's not free.
It's not.
You should have it without having to use a foreign domiciled basis for determining even the price. You have an agreement, we're going to buy crude from you at 10,000 naira per liter. Let it be 10,000 naira per liter, period. The man will continue to produce the PMS, and you and I can have it at a stable price. So we can plan. So now I can't plan, if I'm a transporter, I can't plan what will be my revenues at the end of the year, because everything is now dependent on what government and Dangote are doing with all the Malta businesses. We cannot help businesses build if they cannot plan ahead. Everybody's reacting, government's reacting, businesses are reacting, and we are projecting to make $2 trillion. It can't work.
It can't work. That's coming from George Ashiru, CEO Honeycorp Consulting and Financial Management Consultant, giving us his own perspective on the Israel-Iran war and the implication of all these on the world and the Nigerian economy in general, knowing full well that the economy of Nigeria is aimed on oil, which is our major sources of income in Nigeria. We thank you very much for your time on the conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right, that's the conversation on this side of the table. I'll now hand you over to Adebimpe and Joy for their own conversation this morning.